Pools podcast, where I'm not joined today by Shane and Lee. Instead, I'm joined by Steve, all the way over in sunny California. G'day, Steve. How are you, mate?
Hey, how are you, Peter? Thanks for having me on today for our little cross episode. I know we've been talking about it for a while, so I'm glad that we were able to finally find time and get it done because it's super early in the morning for you, and I just finished up my long day of work. So thanks for making the time for me.
Yeah, time zones are the challenge. I know that I've recorded once with, recorded with Andrew. It was 5 a.m. here. Once with Dan, I think it was quite late at night. So, or with Wayne. So, it's time zones are a challenge.
Yeah, I've tried to record with Andrea a couple times now, and it's always she's getting done with work at like 6 or 7 o'clock, and it's like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and that's one of the times of the day that's like the earlier in the day it is for me. The better it is.
Free up those hours for kite surfing, hey?
Sometimes I'm working.
Yeah. All righty. Well, topic we've been discussing. I've been wanting to do for a very, very long time, and I know it can be controversial. I know people have very strong opinions on it, so let's tackle it. Grab a seat, get a Royale with cheese, and let's talk about the metric system. You look absolutely blank when I said get a Royale with cheese.
Oh, I know Royale with cheese.
Okay.
Pulp Fiction, come on.
Pulp Fiction, yeah. Either the screen froze or you just looked at me as if to say, Pete, what the hell are you going on about?
Oh, no. I was actually looking at this metric versus imperial that we're going to talk about because, like I said, I'm American and I know the metric system, but I got questions.
Okay. So it is important to note that we both have familiarity with both systems. You've had experience with metric. I did CPO in imperial on purpose because I wanted to learn the system. Rudy gave me the option. He said, there's a metric one coming up. And I said, no, I want to do it in imperial because I want to know how that works. And I think I got one question wrong where I messed up converting, volume of a pool feet to gallons. I think I messed up the conversion.
Got it. Fluid ounces to gallons.
Fluid ounces to gallons, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's what it is. I actually had to teach a CPO class one time for a boat for one of the cruise ships, and they came into port into Long Beach where I live, and then they were like, jump on the boat and we're going to cruise down to San Diego, and you stay on the boat for 3 days or whatever it is because we're going to, they're doing maintenance on it while we're out on the water, so we're going to go real slow. And I get there and they were like, okay, and I start this we didn't even talk about this, and they wanted the metric, and I was doing the imperial, so I had to I was like, all right, let's take a 15-minute break, and I called Wayne, and I had to get a whole different PowerPoint and do a whole different PowerPoint for them because they were looking at me like I had 17 heads when we first started to get into it, so they had there was no chance.
Wayne was once telling me that he came to Australia to teach CPO, and if I remember correctly, it was on the flight on the way over here that he realized, hang on, I've got to do this in metric. So I'm sure he had a very relaxing flight for the rest of the trip.
I didn't realize it until I was into part of the first section.
All these glazed eyes in the crowd. Yeah,
we got through it, but it was rough for me because it was I'd never seen any of these questions before, and with the CPO class, like you're the instructor, right? So you want to be pretty fluid, and you want to be making sense, and you want everything to go really nice and smoothly, right? Where I know my PowerPoint back and forth, so literally I know all of the questions, and fluid ounces to gallons and ounces to pounds, and pounds stays the same. I think that's one of the big mistakes that the guys do in our imperial class is they will take the pounds and they will move it to something else when they just need to leave it at pounds. And that's why it's so important in class for us. We always talk about whatever it is when you're doing your numbers and you go to your dosages required sheet and you look at whatever it is, you always write the ounces or the pounds or the fluid ounces. Because if you don't know it, even if you're looking at the answers and it's A, B, C, D, and there's 4 answers for you to choose from, if you don't know what you have, what it actually converts to or is, you're not even going to be close. So,
yeah. So the way metric works, and another thing actually before we get into that I've got to mention is there is some crossover between the two. For example, here we still talk about a 25-inch media filter or a 200 square foot cartridge filter. Over there, you use microns for measuring filtration. You use help me out here. What's another example?
So like I said, we'll use meters and feet, meters and yards for competition pools. So if you go to like a college or, in the Olympics or anything like that, they're all using the metric system as far as that goes. Also in football, NFL football, right? We talk yards a day in and day out, right? So,
yep.
So there is a big...
But a yard isn't a meter. A yard is not a meter. Right,
but a meter is 3.28, right?
Yeah, 3.28 feet, yep.
Yes. And a yard is... What is a yard?
1 meter is 1.0936132983 yards. So just over... meter's just over 1.1 yards.
Got it. Okay. We'll also talk like millimeters, right? And meters sometimes. I think that we talk meters a lot in a sense of, like I said before, with kite surfing. So all of, no matter where the brand comes from, whether it be Hawaii or America in Hood River or in New Zealand or Australia, they're all using meters squared for that. But I think that feet is the biggest thing that we're using over here with that. And you had said that before where, if you had said how tall you are, that you would actually say like 6 feet, 1 inches, where like European people would not say that. They would say that I'm,
1 meter 85 or whatever.
Yeah, like one. Yeah, they would say something more towards that, which is more confusing to me. You know what I mean? Because I just went on a trip to Switzerland not too long ago, and everybody was talking about that. And then somebody said libs, and I was like, "What do you mean libs?" And they were like pounds, and I was like, I have never ever heard anyone call pounds libs before, like in a sentence. And I like looked at my fiance Jen, and I was like, "What did he just say?" And she was like, "Pounds." Like she knew exactly what he was talking about, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." Like I didn't really understand. So,
I'm going to have fun with that. Start randomly referring to libs.
Yeah, I get it now, so it wouldn't happen again. But and then I also think, like with it's weird that you guys use inches and like inches with the sand filter and stuff, but microns
because
for
most
us.
Most of them originally came from the US.
I guess that's why it is. Yeah, microns. We use microns all the time. We always talk in microns, and the biggest thing that I'm always talking about in class is that bacteria is so small of a micron that it's not actually getting filtered out by any of the filters. I think people, when they think filters, they're like, oh, like. I'm not really sure that people all the time know what the filter actually does. It just basically it's
anything above that 3 micron or 10 micron, whatever the filter is. Yeah. And we see a problem there with some people not understanding that they've got extremely fine dust, or they've just done a green pool treatment. They've got the fine dead algae on the floor, and they don't understand why it gets through the filter. And I've had people say, why doesn't the filter stop everything? Well, there are limits. If you want reverse osmosis, I'm sure that's a possibility. You're not going to want to pay for it, but
no, of course. I just had it happen with one of my clients the other day, and he was like, "Hey, the pump keeps turning off because it's the automation. It's the VRS pump, or not the VRS pump, the variable speed pump, and it just keeps turning off. Like it's kind of like it would prime up, and then it would, just turn itself off, and then it was giving him an alarm, and it was saying low flow." And I was like, normally that would tell me that the filter is dirty, but I was like, we just cleaned this guy's cartridge filter like, less than 3 weeks ago. And then I found out that he actually, in the States, you can rent out your pool on this like app, and I think it's called Swimply.
Swimply.
And it's kind of, Yeah, it's like Airbnb for you, so you can rent someone's pool for like an hour or 2 hours. And this guy, he literally lives like right by LAX airport in like one of the nicer areas. So, his pool is really in demand. So he has, it's a commercial pool. It's not a residential pool. It's now turned into a commercial pool. So of course my technician went there and I was like, let's open up the filter and clean it. And he didn't even need to open up the filter. He just went and looked at the PSI, and normally it's at like 19, and it was at like 30. So I was like, okay, I see the problem here. It's and then that's when we're going to talk about moving over to a 24-inch top mount sand filter, because most everybody here in the States, especially on the West Coast, they love diatomaceous earth filters and they love cartridge filters.
Here, DE filters haven't been a thing for decades. For residential pools, still see some of them in commercial. Really, the last time I saw a DE filter on a residential pool would have been easily 25 years ago. If I came across one now, I'd have to stop and think and probably phone a friend saying, "How the hell do I do this? It's been a long time." Cartridge filters are becoming more and more popular over the last 10, 15 years. They're cheaper.
So you guys, are big on sand.
Yeah, but there's a big shift over towards cartridge.
Why do you think that is?
Over to cartridge. First of all, they're cheaper, so pool builders find them cheaper to include in their contract.
Sure.
Secondly, they're easier and quicker to install, so they save some money there.
Sure.
Thirdly, smaller footprint. In our metropolitan areas, we've had a big problem. Because Australia is so big with such small population, there's a lot of urban sprawl. So there are efforts to minimise the urban sprawl, get more people into smaller areas, so blocks of residential land are being shrunk down. So a new estate, you used to have a quarter-acre block. We know no longer talk about acres. Let me just see. A quarter-acre block in square feet is just under 11,000 square feet.
Okay.
Now we'll get them that are around the 3,000 square feet. So blocks of land are a lot smaller. There's less room for pools, so pools are becoming smaller on average, but also there's less room for equipment. And I've had quite a few jobs where there's just no room for a media filter. You have to put a cartridge in.
Really? Yeah, I live in an area where people back in the day, there wasn't a lot of people. So they were building these pools in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And some of these properties are still there. It's still the original house and the original property and the original pool, where you'll find these pools. And, I would say on average in like the San Pedro area and like there's a little peninsula like south of Long Beach and south of Los Angeles and west of Long Beach. And it kind of is just like there. And in that area, there's all of the pools are 30,000, 40,000 gallons. And it's really hard for me to quantify it to these people because they're saying to you, like, why is your service so expensive? And I'm telling them, first of all, I'm paying my guys, X amount of dollars. And it's over $20 at every pool. You know what I mean? Like that's what my guys start at. So I explain that to them. So that's sometimes five times 20 or 5 times 25 or whatever it may be, and now I'm also paying for the chemicals. So with a 30,000 gallon pool, that's the one thing that I love about the pool industry with the Imperial system for me is that I know that 1 gallon of liquid chlorine is going to take a 10,000 gallon pool and bring it up from 0 to 10 for 1 week for me if it's not in the summertime. So that's kind of how we figure out like how much is this client going to use as far as and then if it's 30,000 gallons, I'm going to give them 3 gallons a week, right, included in the service price. So now that might be 15 gallons that I'm out, which is 3 cases, and it's almost 4 cases of chlorine. And I don't know if in Australia, they like when you go to your distributor, are they charging you for the gallons and the bucket that it comes in? Because for us, it's $10 for the 4 gallons. like just the deposit. So you're buying the chlorine that's inside of it, and then you're also paying an extra $10 for the 4 empty gallons and the case.
Yeah, but then when you take the empty drums back, then
of course you get it back.
Yeah. So you get it back. But let's say you've got 100 drums of chlorine in circulation, and the same goes with most of the acid drums, the bigger ones. You're always going to have that dead money sitting there in empty buckets, empty drums, sitting at the back of the workshop type thing. But it's a once-off payment, kind of.
I try and make my guys bring it back sometimes, and like they'll have like 20 of them, and they'll go back, and the distributor doesn't really like that when you go back with like you want to pick up 10, but you're dropping off 20. So now it's just like an always, but again, now you're kind of sitting with a bunch of extra, empties sometimes.
That's it.
Okay, so it seems like you guys are using the Imperial system a lot.
Well, it used to be standard. We do. Look, the difference between the two largely comes down to what you're used to.
Of
I
course.
see a pool, I think of it in metric. I see it and I go, right, that's a 40,000 litre pool. You'd see the same pool and say, oh, that's in round figures about a 10,000 gallon pool. That's
all right. And liters to gallons is there's 3 liters in a gallon, right? 4 liters in a gallon.
Let's go US gallon to litre.
So
just
1
under
liter,
4 litres to a gallon.
Okay, yeah, so 3 and some. Okay, and that makes sense too, because like when we're getting our gas, right? So we're always thinking about it in gallons. When I think of like price of gasoline, so the price of gasoline right now is about $6 a gallon in California, which is probably the priciest in the country.
Yeah, ours hovers around $2 per litre.
That's even more. That's crazy, right? That's like that's like 8 something a gallon.
We're also one of the the only place in the world I know of where diesel costs more than petrol.
So no, diesel here in California costs way more than petrol here. It's like almost
okay.
Yeah, for sure. In California, it's so weird because we claim that we're like the forefront of the whole country in doing like energy efficiency and like solar, and we've had this Title 20 and 22 and 24 that came out. This law came out in 2010, Peter, and literally, I'm not BSing you that I can go to 4 different places and get single speed pumps if I wanted to, or single speed motors if I wanted to.
Yeah,
and when it's only now that you would have to go to one of those places. 2 years ago, you were able to go to any distributor in Los Angeles and you could still get motors. And it was one of the first articles that I had wrote for Aqua Magazine. And I came here from New Jersey and I was kind of like, oh my God, like everybody's like doing this like illegal stuff, And then I started to talk to everybody and they're like, well, like it's not really illegal because like you're basically just, there's a motor and like you're taking the motor off and then you're fixing the motor, right? You're not replacing the pump. But it got into like a sticky situation. And I remember the headline of my article was, lawful or successful, and my question was like, if who's really responsible? If you can't blame the pool guy, Joe Schmo, who wants to give his client something for $250 or $350 as opposed to getting them a variable speed pump for $2,900.
Yeah.
The variable speed pumps here are so really expensive, and they do give you like a rebate on them and stuff, but they've really put us kind of into like a sticky spot. And I do agree that I want to put in variable speed pumps in all of these places. It's just sometimes like, you have these motors that are there and then you have like, it's not connected to automation. So you have like a timer switch, right? So like now this person's spending almost $3,000 and they still have like a archaic system, like sometimes it just does not, I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. And I always want to follow the law and I always want to do the right thing. It's just, if they're giving you that option, then like some people are always going to take that option. And that was my whole point of the article, that like, if it's not at the manufacturing level where the manufacturers can't manufacture this anymore, then it becomes like the pool guy's doing it wrong or whoever it is, but they're still selling it to them. So who's really in the wrong with that?
Wanted. 10mm socket last seen. Yesterday, snugly cradled in my hand, whispering sweet nothings of "I'm not going anywhere." This slippery little bastard has a knack for disappearing faster than your paycheck after a night out with the boys. 1 minute it's there, helping you conquer the world of loose bolts and strip screws, and the next, poof, gone, like a fart in the wind. It's like the Houdini of tools, slipping into another dimension where 10mm sockets live in luxury, sipping margaritas and laughing at our futile attempts to find them. We've all been there, crawling under the car, swearing like a sailor, trying to retrace our steps, convinced it couldn't have just vanished. But nope, that socket's gone, AWOL, probably hiding out with the left socks, and that one lighter that always seems to disappear. The 10mm socket is the ultimate tease. It'll reappear just as soon as you give up hope and buy a replacement, smirking at you from the bottom of your toolbox like, "Were you looking for me? Miss me, did you?" And don't even get me started on the collection of 9mm sockets now gathering dust, because they just don't cut it. So, if you see this little bugger, tell it to quit playing hide and seek and come home. No questions asked. Just a stern talking to, and maybe a nice spot in the drawer where it belongs. Reward: the sweet satisfaction of not having to buy another damn socket set.
Buffer Zone Systems are the pool and spa industry specialists with a complete range of software for pool shops, service companies and commercial aquatic facilities. With more features and integrations than any other pool industry software, you really need to reach out for a one-on-one demonstration. Contact Buffer Zone today.
Is really what it came down to.
The other thing on that, and we've really gone way off the whole metric discussion, but the other thing with that is, what's the lesser of two evils? Supplying someone a replacement single-speed pump that they can afford so that their pool can keep running, so you don't get microbes and mosquitoes breeding in it, spreading disease around the place, or letting it go stagnant because they just don't have the money for a variable speed pump.
Yeah,
Which
I mean,
is the
that's
lesser of two evils.
Of course, and I agree with that. It's just, it was, for me as a person that's teaching someone, other people about how to run commercial swimming pools, like, obviously for me, I want to try and be the best model citizen that I can be, and saying to people like, hey, you should really be doing this, and we're doing this. But like I said, it just puts it into like a weird spot, and it's not that California isn't at the forefront of all of this stuff. There's just zero oversight in that sense. Like, I know a couple people where, like, they've had like stings because like people don't have their licenses and different things like that. And then also, like, licensing here in the States is not like across the board, where in most of the states, if you get your CPO, that actually constitutes as your, like, not your contractor's license, but now you're able to test the water and putting chemicals into the pool and maintain this facility. So, like, that is what you are allowed. You're taking this class so you can take care of your hotel or your, homeowners association pool or whatever it may be. Where here in Los Angeles County, and furthermore in California, they don't recognize CPO. So you actually have to go to LA County and pass a closed book, closed note test to do pools in LA County. And LA County doesn't recognize the CPO. So there are certain places where they don't recognize CPO and they have their own things. Like South Carolina, you actually have to take a South Carolina exam as well too. So not only are you taking the CPO exam, you're also taking the South Carolina exam too, and I found that they're just really strict in those areas, and LA is really strict. But again, I don't feel like there's great oversight here, just because, and it's not the health officer's fault. It's just because they actually have so much other stuff going on where they're mostly doing restaurants and tattoo parlors, and they're making sure that the general public isn't going into these kitchens that are disgusting and, you know, have rats and stuff like that. Like, that's what they're looking for. They're going and looking for stuff like that. And when you just look at the sheer number of restaurants in the Los Angeles metropolitan area as opposed to pools, it's a joke. Like, pools are less than 1% to 2%. And that's, you know, they just don't have enough boots on the ground is really what it is. So you said that, like, your health officers were kind of very strict, and, you know, where I came from, they were very strict too in New Jersey. The one thing that I've kind of found here is that if you had 10 health officers come out and give you like an inspection, you would get 10 different reports. And some of them are I mean, some of them are really knowledgeable and they have really good stuff. But like, I was, you know, going back and forth with one of the health officers the other day because we put in a plan check. And that's another thing. Like, you're supposed to put in a plan check and go, when you do like renovations and stuff, you're supposed to go to the health department. And a lot of people are just like, okay, we're just going to put in a new one and not tell them about it. But then I've also went to them before and I showed them a Stenner pump and I was like, I'm just putting in a new Stenner pump of the same model number, same one. It's just this one's broken. I'm putting in a new one. And they were like, oh, you have to pay for that too. So we paid an extra $500 to be able to put in the same Stenner pump. And that's the type of stuff that really, you know, chaps my butt, because I'm just like, there's no, you know, it seems like it's a money grab at that point. So I just, you know, I would love to have it where, you know, I get to work here with the health department. And when I was in New Jersey and I, you know, ran my brother's pool company in New Jersey, we had a great relationship with the health department. We worked with the health department. When people called the health department, they said, hey, call Steve Sherwood. When the VGB laws came out, there was a big, you know, huge thunderstorm of stuff going on because nobody knew what they were doing. So we were working with the health department. So, I mean, we probably, like, I think in 2008 or something, we probably did like $500,000 worth of drain work. Like, no joke. It was that many people were calling, but we were working with the health department. Where out here, you know, and Los Angeles County Health Department, if you were listening, I want to work with you guys. You know, we teach this class. It's the prep course for guys to get their LA County license. And, you know, I'd called them a few years ago and I was like, hey, I took the class in 2016. My fiance took it in 2017. We have those tests in our minds, but like, now you guys have changed a bunch of answers and you've done a bunch of different things to it. You know, how can we keep ahead of it? And you show us the exam and maybe we show these guys how to pass it, you know? And they were like, no, they were like, you'd have to like figure that out on your own. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. So like now we've went to like, you know, when my employees take it, I'm like, hey, I'm like, bring some business cards with you. I'm like, you know, give the cards out at the end and tell them if they fail to give us a call, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to help people, you know, and we're really trying to. But now I think that, you know, in the next couple of years, I think they're going to adopt CPO, which I think they absolutely should, because now if you have some sort of, hey, this is exactly what you need, everybody knows how to get it. Where half the people that are calling me, they don't even know what they're looking for, and then I have to like direct them into something that they didn't even understand at the first place. Yeah. No. Great metric talk.
Isn't it? I was just thinking that. So
I mean, this is what happened. This is what winds up happening. We wind up going in a bunch of different directions, but we're talking about a bunch of great different stuff. But I do have some, like I said, I do have some specific questions on, you know, some of the metrics. So I know that you were going to talk about like how the metric stuff kind of started. So I want to hear a little bit about that. And then I have some questions for you as well, too.
Yeah. So metrics, very, very simple, as you know. So let's look at length, for example. You have a unit called a meter, just over a yard. And you can either multiply that, say you multiply it by 1,000, becomes a kilometer. A kilometer is about 60% of a mile. I don't know what that is in yards. So drag races, you know, as in not guys wearing dresses running along, but the race cars, they'll do the quarter mile race. That's another thing we still use. And basically when we look at the measurement of a mile, or let's say we talk about going 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in a car. Over there, I believe you do 0 to 60, which is pretty darn close. Then you divide the meter up for smaller things. So a centimeter is 100th of a meter. A millimeter is 1,000th. A micrometer, that's your micron, millionth. Then you get a nanometer. and that's sort of what physicists talk about. Then you've got area is all straightforward: square meter, square mile. Cubic kilometre isn't really something used. Cubic metre, I'll come back to that later. That's an interesting one. Volume, we use litres. Again, kilolitre is 1,000 litres. Megalitre is a million litres. So kilolitre, yeah, we'll talk about a pool being 50 kilolitres. Another way of saying 50,000 litres.
Okay.
Megalitres, that's what you see in civic water supply. A megalitre pool, it's not often you see well, actually, you could with Olympic pools, 2.2 megalitres. But it's just not the way we talk about it.
So would you would just, so an Olympic, so once you get into that big though, like when the Olympic size pool, because an Olympic size pool is like 500,000 gallons, right?
Yeah,
it's a lot. It's
million, I think it's 2.2 million litres. It's been a while. So there we just say 2.2 million.
Got it.
Working
Okay.
out the chemistry, you might talk in kilolitres.
Okay.
And again, go down, you've got centilitre. The only place I've ever seen the term centilitre used, or CL, for 100ths is on European beer stubbies, beer bottles, because they'll talk about 33 centilitres. Here, we call that 330 millilitres. So Europeans are bigger on the centilitre thing. Milliliter, very, very small. About what's that? About a 25th of an ounce or some such thing.
So you're saying that's what a beer is 330 milliliters usually?
Well, that's one. No, I'm not drinking in the morning. I simply didn't clean up my desk last night. So this here is a very nice one. 330 mil.
Okay, so 330 milliliters is 11.15 fluid ounces. So that's, you're getting gypped out a little bit. Here we do 12-ounce cans, so you're they're screwing you for about not 0.95 ounces. Almost an ounce. We're getting an extra ounce in our beers here.
Do I have a dig at American beer? Do I? Maybe not. I'll leave that for another time.
American beer is good. Good. Well, no.
Do you know a joke about American beer here?
What's that?
How is American beer close to sex in a canoe?
How?
They're both fucking close to water.
So if you drink American beer, sure, like Coors Light or something, then yeah, it's definitely. Yeah, I had one of those the other day, and I was like, oh man, this is like what I drank in college. But there are some, like my favorite brewery is Yangling. It's out of Pennsylvania, and they have like an amber beer. They sell so much on the East Coast that you can't even buy it here in California because they could care less about selling it. Like they're making so much money. They're like, whatever. I also like, I drink a lot of Jameson, and I drink Jameson with Bundaberg. You know Bundaberg ginger beer?
I know it well.
I'm a big fan of the Bundaberg ginger beer, so I buy that in the pack. I buy like six to a case, so I'll buy like a whole case of it.
Yep. But yeah, beer industry, I get the same impression. There's a lot of similarities. Here we've got the big breweries that do the mass-produced stuff, largely rubbish. No one in Australia drinks Foster's.
Come on, like the big Foster cans?
If I go to any bottle shop, liquor store, we call them a bottle shop or a bottle-o.
Sure.
If I go to any bottle-o anywhere around, I guarantee you they will not have Foster's. I last had a Foster's because I was doing something with some friends in America, and they insisted I drink Foster's. And I said, do I have to? It's rubbish. And I actually had to specially order in a case of, or a carton. Actually, this was canned, so it's a slab. We call it a slab of Foster's, just to do this little video with them. And it took about 3 weeks to arrive. Foster's is not a thing here. As we say, it's the crap we send off to America.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Very big, smaller scale brewery operations here. And of course, microbreweries have really taken off in recent years.
Sure.
And
Yeah, I mean, same thing here in the States. Yeah, there's a ton of places that like that's the new thing to like have your own brewery, and they make really good stuff. You know, it's all like small batch, and it's really good.
Man,
all
we're
right.
going around the topics, but where with weight, a gram is what's a gram in ounces? 0.035 ounces. So tiny measurement. Again, multiply by 1,000 for a kilogram.
Yeah.
Milligram is,
you know,
yeah,
how many grams are in an ounce? 28.
Something like that.
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. In America, that's what everybody uses. So, in California, marijuana is legal, right? So, like, there's most of like they'll have like all these ads. Like, it'll be, I don't know like what the situation is in Australia, but when you go down the highway, like they can have beer ads and they can have like marijuana ads, and because now it's recreationally legal, so like they'll like have like a deal, and that's why like everybody, Chris Rock once had a thing, and he was like, we don't really know the the metric system, and then he started talking about those different ounces to grams to ounces and all that. So
here, marijuana completely illegal as far as I'm aware. I don't really follow it. There is a big push to get it available for medical use.
Sure.
I could not tell you how many of my customers have marijuana plants growing in their backyards. A lot of them you're saying. Yeah. No, of course. It's become, in the last 20 years here, the testing has become so much like better that now you can like if you go to like a store like on 2nd Street, which is like the main road that we have here by where we live, where the restaurants and the bars are and stuff. Yeah,
there's probably 3 different places that you can go. They're called dispensaries. But now, of course, when you go there, instead of it costing whatever it's going to cost, $50 or $75, it's going to cost $125 because the tax, it's the same thing, just like gas. In California, they're taxing the stuff like crazy. So
the government can make $1 out of it.
It's not even worth going. It's not even worth going to the dispensary, to be honest with you, because you walk in and you're like, oh my god, like it's like new car. It's like you're buying a Mercedes. And you're like, all right, this is wild. But yeah, I did know that like in Australia, they're pretty strict with their with their drug laws for sure, and then also the gun laws are very, very strict as well too. Obviously.
Yeah, there's a lot of politics behind that. Of course. Lot of politics. So anyway, the metric system.
we got our own politics going on over here, Peter. I don't want to talk about yours.
No, it's I've been watching.
We're a mess over here.
It's interesting times.
Yep.
Now, where metric system make things really easy is, let's say you get a cubic meter. Right, 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter, make it a big box. That will hold exactly 1 kiloliter of water. If 1,000 liters of water in 1 cubic meter. So it makes conversion for that very easy. If that water is pure, so assuming there's 0 TDS in it, that will weigh 1,000 kilograms or 1 metric ton. Yeah, so converting between them is so easy. Let's say you go down to the small level. You've got 1 cubic centimeter, so that's 1/100th of a meter. You've got that cubed. That is 1 milliliter of volume. It weighs 1 gram. To heat that by 1 degree Celsius requires 1 joule of energy. So everything in metric comes together.
Yeah, it fits into each other. So for us, 1 gallon of water weighs 8.33 pounds, right? So yes. That's our conversion to that's what we know is. And then if you had a cubic foot, right? So if you had a by 1 cube, you could actually fit in 7.5 gallons of water. It's 7.4888888. But for argument's sake, we use 7.5, and that's what all the exams and stuff use.
Yeah.
So that's how we look at it when we're doing like volume of a pool, I wasn't a very good math student, so when I explain in the CPO class, I explain volume. I actually explain it as we're in a helicopter looking down at the pool. And then, you do length, which is the top. So you measure the top, and then you measure the width, with your walking stick, the length times width. And then, you do the depth, usually just average depth. So shallow plus deep divided by 2. And then you multiply that times 7.5. And that's going to give your gallonage in volume. But what I really love telling, the people in class and, you guys listening out there that own your own pool companies, you can do your own quotes without having to go out to this person's pool. Like if you're a busy guy and you're single polar and someone calls you and they're like, hey, like I want you to come service my pool. You can ask them, the questions of like, hey, is the pool up and running? Is it green? Those questions. But really all you need to know is how deep is the deep end of this pool. And if they tell you it's 6 feet or it's 8 feet, then you can go on Google Earth. And there's an app, I don't know if you can use Google Earth in Australia, but you go to Google Earth in the States and you can get a helicopter view up, view down of the pool. And there's a measuring tool. So you just touch it with your phone and then you say hit measure. And then you just do the length times the width. And then if you know the depth, how much is in that, how much water is in that pool already. And all of our quotes, I don't really, we're so spread out in LA that like, unless you're off by yourself, there's a client that I have that's near you. So I'm not too worried about like the drive time and stuff. Like I'll just add it onto somebody's route like one day. So what I really care about is how much water is in your pool. And that's what my quote is going to be on. It's not going to be, on any other stuff. It's literally like I have a list and basically if you're 20,000 gallons, like you start out at X amount of dollars and every 5,000 gallons that it goes up, it's $5 more per week.
Fair enough.
But and it makes it real easy for us, as far as
quoting.
Earlier,
you include certain chemicals. We charge extra for everything.
So what's crazy is that here I lost about $8,000 my first year in business because I didn't realize that we were giving away chemicals here in California was part of the price. In New Jersey, it's the same thing. Like we're going to open and close your pool and we're going to give you a price. And that's for me to open and close, me to come for 15 weeks. And then we buy you your chemicals. We charge you for them separate. Yeah. Where here everybody includes the chemicals, so that's why I have to be really exact on what's the worst case scenario for me to put in this pool. And that's how I kind of go off of it, where if it's a 10,000 gallon pool, I do 1 gallon. So if it's a 40,000, let's say 20,000 gallon pool, worst case scenario on a good month is 10 gallons. So I know that I'm going to be into this pool for however much I'm paying my guy and then however much the chemicals are. And then we're also using muriatic acid. We don't really carry on our trucks. We don't carry pH plus or pH minus. So we don't have sodium bisulfate or sodium carbonate on the truck really. If we're going to bring our pH up, normally we're bringing the chlorine up as well. So we're just shocking with liquid chlorine. It's bringing the chlorine up. It's bringing the pH up as well. We have muriatic acid.
Predominantly be trichlor tabs.
No, so we try not to use tablets if we can help it. So we use liquid chlorine most of the time.
Why does the pH need to be taken up?
What do you mean? So a lot of times the pH will be like down. You know what I mean? Not because we're using trichlor, just from the heat and people using it and if it rains or stuff like that. But most of the time we're bringing the pH down. So most of the time I'm shocking the pool and then I'm using liquid chlorine and then I'm using muriatic acid to bring it down, the pH down. And then we have baking soda and we don't even carry calcium chloride on us because the calcium comes out of the tap so high here because we have such hard water. Wow. Yeah. If it does come out low, I will actually start shocking with calcium hypochlorite to bring the chlorine up and the calcium up at the same time, because at this moment, which is wild, calcium hypochlorite pound for pound to gallon is less expensive than a liquid chlorine.
I'd need to see what the cost comparison is for us.
So for me, not retail. So retail, it's crazy expensive. It's like $650 for a 100-pound bucket of Cal Hypo, and 1 gallon retail is about like $11. No, not 1 gallon. Sorry, 4 gallon. No. Each gallon is $11. So like when you go and you buy a case, it's basically like almost $40.
Okay.
It's really expensive, liquid chlorine. So if I didn't have to use liquid chlorine, I wouldn't. But it's, too many of the places here have high calcium hardness in the water already. So we can't use the calcium hypochlorite. But we will use it for startups. And did you guys talk startups last week?
We did. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think we might as well after we hear your episodes to not overcross. I don't really like startups here, man. Startups are weird. All of the builders don't start up the pools, and I didn't realize this until like a few years in. But like none of the builders that build the pools, they always slough it off to someone else. And then 6 to 8 months later, when you come back for the warranty claim, they're like, "Well, we didn't start up the pool, and we're not the ones taking care of it. So, your chemistry is probably messed up." And they come in and they try and, take that route on it. So for me, like when I renovate a pool, we're the ones starting it up and we're the ones that are taking care of it. And I basically tell them that, hey, if we're not the ones that are taking care of it, like you're going to have a really hard time getting a warranty for anything is really what it comes down to, because obviously the first 30 days where it's hydrating is really, really important. I use the National Plasters Council, startup method. But even when you're doing that, like my guys are coming once a day for the first 7 or 10 days. And then I'm actually buying my client a brush and a pole and I'm showing them how to brush the pool. And I tell them, if you want this thing to actually last 10 to 15 years, then every night for the first 10 days, you are going to be out here at night brushing the pool. And then after we're done for 10 days, when we start coming once a week, every day, once a day, you're going to come out here and you're going to brush the pool. And I really get my clients to subscribe to the fact that we are a team, in a sense of if I show up and there's really bad algae, I'm not like upset with my client, but I'm explaining to them that you are definitely getting charged extra money for what we're doing today. Because if you would have called me, it's Friday, and if you would have called me on a Tuesday, I would have sent my guy out on Tuesday and Wednesday, and we would have taken care of this now. And I would have only had to add, not much extra, and I could have given that to you. But now, I don't know what you guys are doing for algae, but for us, when we get algae, instead of shocking to 10 parts per million, we're shocking to 30 parts per million, right? 30. And then we're also coming back the next day. We're also putting in we use this stuff called swimtrine. It's a copper-based algicide, and me as a good pool operators trying to tell other pool operators, I'm always trying to take metals and minerals out of the water. But what I've found with like using strikeout or yellow out and stuff like that is I've had to take a lot of visits. So it took 2-3 visits of me coming back and, trying to get rid of this algae, where if you just use, 3 ounces per 10,000 gallons of basically of the stuff that I just said, and then you shock it to 30 and you brush it with a steel brush, you come back the next day and basically you're not golden, but you're ready to go. You shock it one more time to 10, you brush it, you clean the filter, and then basically you're good to go. But I got tired of like, going to these clients and being like, who's paying for this? So I just wanted that. So I'm very, very transparent at the beginning of what I expect from them. And I don't make them, but I have a bunch of demo vacuums. I use like the Polaris, like VRXs and the Alphas, and I use like the Dolphin Matronics one. They have a pretty good one. I want a robotic one. I don't like the ones that go to the booster pumps or to the suction side cleaners or anything like that. I want something that plugs into an outlet, is 12 volts, has a bag, and goes on once a day. And I always say to all my clients, like, if you have a salt cell and you have a robotic cleaner, it looks like your pool guy has been there every day, and your pool's going to be clean and clear every day, instead of, most of your residential clients are once a week, right?
Most of ours, the standard here is once a month.
Stop.
Yep.
What are they doing in the interim? And then what is your pricing structure like? How would you even make money? Like
service, standard service, full service. So that's vacuum, filters, baskets, chemistry. I've seen places do it anywhere from $80 to $110 per service. Some charge more than that, plus the cost of chemicals. Now, the challenge we face with monthly servicing, 95% of our systems, 95% of our pools are saltwater. The customer needs to either buy an acid feeder or manually add acid at least once a week. Very few of them do. Very few of them actually do it. So that's the big challenge. I've got a lot of fortnightly customers. their pools, you can tell the difference between a monthly service pool and a fortnight service pool.
Okay.
Weekly, the only time we normally
And for you guys
see
in the
weekly,
States, a fortnight is 2 weeks, yeah?
isn't that a word there?
It is, but nobody really uses it. I would say
Oh.
it's more of like a European, like an English word
Yeah, fair
from like
I
back
did
in the
not know
day.
that.
From like medieval time. You think like medieval times when we talk fortnights.
I think medieval times when we talk feet and inches, but anyway. But yeah, and then weekly, we've got some customers go for weekly just because they want their pool to be properly maintained all the time.
Sure.
We've got and they're able to pay for it. The other weeklies are homes on the market for sale, where there might be potential buyers coming in. Nobody wants to see a messy pool.
Sure.
And of course, builders with their display homes.
Got it. Are you doing a lot of pool inspections there?
Pool inspections, I do either. I do two types of inspection. Again, avoid commercial. I'm not interested in the red tape. I'll do an inspection for the seller before the house is listed on the market, and that's where I say, look, your chlorinator isn't working. Before it goes on the market, let's remove the chlorinator. If it isn't there, it doesn't have to work. Give them that sort of advice.
Sure.
Then I also do them for home buyers. And that's where I go in if something doesn't work. Everything goes on a proper report. The way I write my report, my view is, if this ends up in a court hearing, my report needs to stand up. I'm not interested in a single-page little checklist. It's a proper...
No. Oh, my God, no.
And on that, I point out everything that's wrong. I had one recently. The seller called me in and I said, look, your gas heater's completely corroded out. Your chlorinator's not working. There was something else. I forget what it was. You remove it. Get in a gas plumber, remove the heater. I'll rip out the chlorinator. It doesn't need to work if it isn't there. No, it'll be right. It's not a problem. Finished the report. Done. Then the buyer got me in for a pre-settlement inspection. I already knew about this heater, this chlorinator, the other stuff that was wrong. And the seller he rang me when he saw a copy of the report that I sent to the buyer, and he went ballistic. He said, they're saying they need, I think it was $9,500 or something, $9,500 or something.
Sure.
Price. I said, well, I told you, if it's there, it has to work. If it's not there, it doesn't have to work. You chose to leave it there. That's it. Now, very, very few of the sellers actually fix the problems before the house is sold, before it's settled.
Of course.
So I do buyer inspection. The seller doesn't want to pay for fixing the problem, so it just goes through. By that point, the buyer moves in. They know me. They know I'm thorough. They know already what's wrong with the pool. That's a very easy sale.
No, of course. Yeah. And I would say that most of my pool inspections are coming from the buyers. I've only ran into not problems with the sellers, but they want to see a report that says that this pool is a perfect 10, and there's 20,000 new pools every year built in California. And the amount of perfect 10 pools that I've walked into and seen is less than 3%, and I see hundreds of new pools a year, whether they become my clients or not. It's in the hundreds now. And most of them, they've been neglected in one way or another. And the problem here in California is that the weather is so temperate all year long. In New Jersey, you'd never see a filter last more than 5 seasons, that's just recurring revenue that's coming and coming and coming because it's sitting out in the winter and it's not going to last very long. And it's the same thing with like classic cars. Like in New Jersey, you don't see classic cars unless you're at a classic car show. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they take them out of their garages and out of the dungeons and they bring these nice cars out. In California, man, if you're walking down the street, like it's classic car city because these cars just last so long because, and it's the same thing with the equipment. Like when I first moved here in 2015, I saw my first Series 2000 filter. I don't know if you've ever even seen something like that, but it's this old stainless. It's a Pentair stainless steel filter, and it's got like a tin man top on top of it, and then when you want to like take it off, you have to use the like pump to like pressurize it, to like suck it on, and like you got to like put it on in backwash. And like I was just, the first time I saw it, I was like, I'm not interested in any of this, you know? I didn't even realize that it had like 7 cartridges inside, or not 7 grids inside of it instead of 8. Because I'm used to, you know, I've never seen it. I've seen the Series 4000, and then that turned into the Pentair FNS Plus, right? So now we're like 4 or 5 generations down the line, but in New Jersey, you never saw anything like that because they only lasted a few seasons. Like we actually started having a service for the winter where we would take off your motor and we would take it back to the office and keep it in the garage, you know, where it would be heated for the winter. Because we were losing so many pumps. And the ones that we didn't do that with, we would use like this lubricating foam. So after we would blow out all the lines and blow out all the equipment and stuff, we would take this foam and like it's got like this little like tube that goes on it, and you stuff it into the impeller and and then it foams up, and then you turn it on and it pulls in the foam and you cross your fingers. And I would say 50% of the time when you came back from, you know, the winter time into the spring and you were going to open these pools, there was just so much extra work that had to be done because these people's, you know, the motors weren't working, and it was just kind of a mess, you know? And then also you come to these pools with these covers, and now you got to like vacuum it. You got to come back 3 or 4 times. So it's a lot with the opening and closings. I feel for you guys that have to open and close these pools.
I'm glad we don't.
No?
No, this season, seasonality of pools is different around Australia. I was saying earlier, Australia is about the same size as the USA, lower 48.
Yeah.
So big country. So a lot of different climates. Where we are here, we've got hot summers. This summer we had quite a few days at 43 degrees. It's about 116 Fahrenheit. And that's quite hot enough. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Today we're looking at, I think today's going to be about 15 degrees Celsius. So it's around about the 60 Fahrenheit mark, but quite a bit of rain. So no one's using or very few people use their pools this time of year. But because of the amount of rain we get over the winter, we find that a lot of chemical gets diluted. So, you know, calcium buffer especially go right down. Salt level goes down dramatically. So they're big things. Whereas and we don't really need stabilizer generally, cyanurate in the wintertime. Because they're salt systems designed for our summers, winter here is a walk in the park for them.
Same thing here. Yeah.
Would be
summertime. You're still shocking the pool though, because now you have a demand that goes from here and shoots up to here. So even the cell itself is only making this much. So you still got to bridge that gap.
Sell them a bigger Chlorinata. The other thing is summers here, hot, very dry. We'll go months without a drop of rain. And that means there's a lot of very, very fine dust in the air.
Sure.
And that gets into pools, and of course that becomes an issue with filters. So we don't have a opening or closing time of year, but we do maintain pools a bit differently. Now, if you go to the opposite corner of the country, far north Queensland, where it's tropical, completely different kettle of fish. There, they run their cyanurate levels higher than I'd ever want to run them, but they have to just to maintain chlorine. It's year round. They get the cyclones, they get the big tropical storms, which fortunately we don't get here. So they can wreak absolute havoc. You know, where they're dumping that much water all at once, washing that much crap into the pool, that's a big job for them. You go to Tasmania, which is the little island off the bottom of the south coast on the east side of the country. Very temperate climate. I think that's quite similar to Auckland, where Shane is. But there, the pool industry is tiny because it's just not warm enough to really warrant swimming for a lot of the time.
Sure.
So there, I reckon it must be a breeze to maintain pools, because there'd never be any chlorine demand unless your dogs jump in or something. But we've spoken about that. I think most of the various flavors of talking pools each week in the past have spoken about regional differences in pools.
Yeah, no, I heard about that one. When it's the three of you guys on, it's as an American, sometimes it's hard to understand you guys, so I have to like go back and like I'm like, what did he just say? Because you guys start talking to each other, and then you start talking really fast, and then once you start talking really fast, I'm like, wait, what? Where with like Rudy or like Wayne? Well, no, with Rudy or Wayne, like if I was in a rush and I needed to listen to their podcast quick, like I could put them on like speed 2 or like something like that. And and then like I would understand exactly what they were saying. Like I wouldn't need to. Where with you guys, like one time I was walking my dog and listening to you guys, and it like went to speed 1.5 or something like that. And I was like, what is going on? I was like, oh my God. I was like, I got to put that back to, and it's just, it's obviously how everybody talks, right? So we're from different parts of the world. And I used to have a really but I used to have a very heavy New York accent, right? Because I come from New Jersey. So I talked like this. I talked not like the old Italian gangsters, but like, how they joke about people from New Jersey and like Staten Island and stuff like that. So we kind of have like that little twang. But then when I was doing, radio, my radio show was on in Florida, and in Florida, it's very Southern. So everybody talks like very slow, and like they have a little bit of a drawl. And it's different from Texas, but it's still very like Southern, it's definitely a lot slower. So I'll never forget, like I did my first couple shows and they were like, Steve, we love your content, like everything that you're talking about. We love it. But they were like, you need to slow down. They were like, nobody can understand you in Florida. They were like, you got to go to your people. Okay. And I was like, man, I'm from New Jersey, but no, you guys are great. And obviously I do understand everything that you guys say. And you guys have a lot of great shows, and it's great to see like a different part of the world and the perspective that you guys have. And obviously that you guys have opposite seasons than us. And not a lot of people, because it's crazy, because here, there's a lot of people that will come and live in like Hood River, which is in, the almost like near Seattle, Washington. It's like a few hours in from there. I guess it's like 5 or 6 hours from there, but from Portland, it's a few hours. And that's like the northwestern part of the United States. And the people that like live up there and do like windsurfing all the time, they'll do the summer there, and then they'll drive their RV all the way down the coast, all the way down to Baja California, and then they'll spend the winter in Baja California. And basically they have like, just by going to those two places and just going from the one to the other part of the country, you can literally have summer all year long. So I don't know if you have a lot of people that do like that transient thing where they're like moving back and forth, but in America we have a lot of people that are going back and forth and trying to stay summer all the time.
Some do it with the snowfields over east.
Sure.
We've got very skiable snow over on the east coast, or just in from the coast. And you get some with that. But for the most part, I think that's about it. We get the grey nomads. We get the grey nomads. They're the retired people. They've gone grey. I'm getting there, as you can see. And they'll buy a 4-wheel drive, or 4x4, get a caravan, and this whole couple will go there and drive slowly around the entire country with people who actually have somewhere to be stuck behind them. So that's the bigger one. You see some of them chasing in the summer.
No, we have a lot of snowbirds, but people are going like they're more like going from like the Northeast more down towards Florida. Florida's a lot cheaper as far as like cost of living, and I consider Florida, it's like the people from Florida, they say like we're from the country of Florida, and like people from Texas say like we're from the country of Texas, because like Florida and Texas, like although they are part of the America, like the way that they run their governments it's totally different. Like, as far as like concealed carry, like you don't even need a concealed carry to carry a gun in Florida. Like if you are a person that lives in Florida and you are a registered person in Florida, you have the right to carry a gun under your pants. You know what I mean? Like where in California, it's like what? Like nobody has guns here except the police. I mean, I'm not saying not people don't have them, but like nobody's walking around strapped, like with their gun hanging out. Where like Florida and Texas, like you can definitely do that. So it's a bit different with the laws and stuff. But again, that's kind of getting into politics and stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned gun laws before, and just into it now. The main things here is if you're police, security company, then you can get a license to carry a firearm.
Yeah, sure.
Obviously, military has their own rules, which I'm not up to speed with. But to buy a handgun privately, this is Western Australia anyway, it's meant to be a national law, but the WA government, the West Australian government, is looking at changing it. They always are. For a handgun, you must be a member of a licensed shooting club. You may only use that handgun at the shooting club. To get a rifle or shotgun, you can either, and this is weird, you can get it as a member of a shooting club and use it only at the shooting club. Or you can get it, you can apply for a license to use it for a valid reason. Now, typically that involves pest control on farms. They want to know what you're going to be shooting, what type of, what caliber it is, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, of course.
Then you can use it on any farm with permission of the owner, or you can also use it in a rifle range. So if you get it for a farm, you can shoot on a farm or a range. If you get it for a range, you can't shoot on a farm. So that's about
in California, our gun laws are very strict. So if you went to the the outdoorsman store, they would have guns that were from like the Vietnam era. So like if you wanted to buy a Glock, you would only be able to buy like the original Glock 19. And the reason being is because the government in California said to all the gun companies, like, you have this model of this gun and it's got a silver slide and it's got a black slide and it's got a gold slide that you made for it, so there's actually 7 different color slides that you made, right? So they would have to pay for that gun to be tested like each time, so they would have to pay for it 7 times, and it was like $100,000 per gun, or something crazy, you know what I mean, where like they were just like, you know what, we're not going to sell our guns in your state. Like, good luck. So that's why if you go to like, a lot of people here will go to like Nevada or like a state that's, really close by. And then like, it's weird too. Like in Nevada, there's no income tax, in Florida, there's no income tax. So if you move to certain states in the country, then, all of a sudden your paycheck gets a lot fatter, a lot bigger.
Mm.
All right, cool. Yeah. So glad that we got onto that metric imperial system. For us with the imperial system, obviously we're using inches, feet, right? Pounds, gallons, and miles. But like I said, I didn't realize that actually how much we're kind of crossing over, and it really does depend on where that came from and what they're using it. Because you guys are saying 24, 30-inch sand filters, and most of the sand filters came from America, right? So, that's why you guys are using it. So it's really interesting just to see like kind of how everybody in different parts of the world kind of operates, and I want to thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming. It's been fun.
Let's do it again. I think that after this we can bring in the other two. Fend you off.
I was just a little concerned that in the metric imperial debate, it can very quickly become a debate, and I thought, don't want to come across as 3 versus 1. So
no. That's, man, like I would be on your side with this one. I think that the metric system is way easier to use. I love how it fits into each other. I'm not a big math mind. I do more. I'm really good at like writing and reading and editing and stuff like that, where with math I didn't do very well with math in school. So for me, it could be a mile, it could be a yard, it could be to me, as long as I'm getting dollars, that's what matters.
yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
right. Awesome. Well, thanks again for having me. Thanks again for having me.
And awesome. You have a bloody good day. Well, for you, have a good night. I'm about to go have a good day. It's raining. Alrighty. You take care of yourself. Hooroo.
All right. Thanks. Have a good one.